The Minnesota Vikings fall 30-23 at home against the LA Rams. Another loss by one score. The Minnesota Vikings have all of their losses, all 8 losses this season, and it's going to continue. I say this every week. It feels like all 8 losses have been by one score. And all wins, except the Seattle win, has also been by one score. So every game this Viking season has been at the flip of a coin, and that really decides our Viking season is a 50% chance on winning each game, and it's always going to come down to the fourth quarter and who can be the last team to hold the ball. That is what it all comes down to. The Minnesota Vikings fall to 7-8 on the season. We haven't had a winning record this entire season so far, falling to 7-8. Fall to ninth in the NFC right now. Now the Vikings are ninth in the NFC. However, the New Orleans Saints will take on the Miami Dolphins tonight, and that will be a much needed win for the Dolphins. If the Vikings want to make a playoff push, we have to cheer for that Dolphins, and I'm sure you Vikings fans will have no problem cheering against the New Orleans Saints, but we're going to have to cheer for that on Monday Night Football, as if this happens, if the Dolphins do win, Vikings will have to win out, and Eagles will have to lose one of their upcoming matchups. Two of the Eagles' upcoming matchups are both against Washington and against Dallas. So two pretty tough matchups for the Eagles going forward, and hopefully Eagles can sneak in one loss in there. I mean, Dallas is looking very tough, but so are the Eagles right now. So that's a flip of a coin right there, and we hope the Vikings can make a playoff push. With all said and done, if the Vikings do make the playoffs, they'll make it the playoffs as a 6th or a 7th seed, most likely a 7th seed, and I mean, who cares? We're going to be easy out or one and done in the playoffs. However, we'll be cheering for our team to make the playoffs. So this Vikings team, now this wasn't the worst loss. It was not the worst loss of the season because the Vikings have had far worse losses seasons. But with that being said, the Vikings lose another game that they could have won if they called the game correctly. Vikings defense comes up with a great performance. And that's where we're going to start because this Vikings defense played well. Other than the stupid punt return touchdown that they allowed, that also there's a block in the back on the punt return touchdown. Vikings allowed an easy punt return touchdown. You hate to see it because that's the easiest touchdowns you can get in the NFL, making the Vikings a 7-point loss. If the Vikings didn't have that, they would have had another shot at winning this game. However, Anthony Barr comes up clutch in this game. Vikings get 3 interceptions on Matthew Stafford. Very unusual game from Matthew Stafford. However, the Vikings are very used to intercepting Matthew Stafford, so they continue doing it in this game. Both interceptions by Anthony Barr were easily given to him, and we had a couple other interceptions. Cameron Dancer dropped one in the first quarter, and the Vikings had another one they dropped earlier or later in the game. Vikings could have easily had 5 interceptions. Anthony Barr had 2 interceptions, setting up the Vikings in the red zone. Both interceptions Anthony Barr had, one set up the Vikings on the Rams 11-yard line, and one set him up on the 2-yard line. So Vikings were first and goal in that as well. And they both obviously ended in scoring drives. However, the Vikings were able to get a touchdown in the first quarter on it. Vikings didn't even get a touchdown the entire first quarter. We're going to get into this Vikings offense later because that was horrendous, especially in the first quarter. But Vikings defense might not have sacked Matthew Stafford. You might have looked at it and said Vikings were not able to get to him. Vikings were able to pressure Matthew Stafford when blitzing. With that being said, although the Vikings didn't get a sack, it just comes down to the fact that our defensive ends aren't great. I mean, DJ Wanham's just a solid defensive end. I mean, he's not even ready to be a starter right now. He's had a couple great days, especially the last one against the Bears. I mean, he's had some solid days, but when you look at all said and done, I mean, you have to look at this Vikings defensive ends, and we went from one of the best defensive end duos 2 years ago to now one of the worst. Now, Danielle Hunter coming back would be huge. Danielle Hunter's a top 5 edge rusher in the NFL, and him coming back would be huge with this Vikings team. However, he is injury prone, so we have to look to the future at the defensive end position. One of the biggest needs going into this offseason will be to get a new defensive end, both left and right defensive end, because we don't expect Everson Griffin to be back as well, and we don't expect Sheldon Richardson to be back. So Vikings just need pass rushers all around the board. Anthony Barr likely won't be back as well. So you think the Vikings defense is bad now? I mean, it's only going to get worse if they don't try to fix these problems in free agency. So it does not look good with this Vikings defense. We're going to lose a lot of our players this next offseason. And Danielle Hunter coming back, I mean, we still have to look to a future defensive end. However, Vikings might not have been able to get a sack. However, the defensive ends are still solid. Sheldon Richardson is making his mark. Sheldon Richardson is finally coming together on this Vikings defensive line. So same goes for DJ Wanham. But the big problem with this Vikings defense is not pressuring Matthew Stafford. The big problem with this Vikings defense every game is just allowing yards on the ground. The Minnesota Vikings defense has allowed another big day with rushing yards. They allowed 159 rushing yards in this game. Sony Michel ran 27 times and racked up 131 rushing yards and got 4.9 yards per carry and a touchdown. This Vikings defensive front, I just can't understand why they're so bad against the run. The reason why we brought in Dalvin Tomlinson, the reason why we brought in Michael Pierce is so we can stop the run up the middle. Yet the Vikings continue to allow big days, 159 rushing yards to the Los Angeles Rams offense, who is a pass-heavy offense. You allow 159 rushing yards. Sony Michel, yes, that's the Sony Michel that was drafted in the first round, 4 years ago by the Patriots and has not worked in the NFL. Well, now looking at this, he definitely looks like he is working in the NFL and looking like he's trying to revive his career with the LA Rams. Sony Michel is a big name only because he won that Super Bowl with the Patriots, and everybody knows who he was because he was with the Patriots. Now he's with the Rams and obviously lighting up our Vikings defense, as every running back does. I mean, it's not just Sony Michel being a great running back, is just us making him look like a great running back is what we're doing. We make every opposing running back look like a star. Every opposing running back looks like Barry Sanders on our Vikings defense because we are that bad against the run. However, all aside though, we expected that the Vikings would give at least 30 points in this game. I said this going into this game. Vikings defense was going to give up at least 30 points. It's good to know that they only gave up 30 points in this game. And the reason why the Vikings lost this game was not the defense, because we expected them to obviously allow Sony Michel to look like a great running back and allow a lot of yards through the air. The problem why the Vikings lost this game comes by no surprise. Clint Kubiak, Mike Zimmer, and our coaching staff is the simplest reason why the Vikings lost this game. We have to look to that first half, for example. The Vikings were trying to run the ball all first half, and to the surprise of absolutely nobody, the run game doesn't work in the first half. You're going up against a Rams defense with Aaron Donald, the best run stopper and pass rusher in the NFL, and about 10 other names on that Rams defense. Obviously, Von Miller as well is out there. And now you're without Dalvin Cook, and you're trying to run the ball all game long against this Rams defense. And like I said, to the shock of absolutely nobody, the Vikings are unsuccessful in the run game. Alexander Madison did have a solid day when you look at it overall, but that was when the Vikings were passing in the second half. The first half was horrendous on this Vikings offense, as the Vikings only had one field goal or one score in the first half, and that was a field goal. And you're not even crediting this Vikings offense for that field goal, because that was Anthony Barr's interception that set up the Vikings in the red zone, and the Vikings were unable to get a touchdown, even though they only had to go 11 yards in 3 plays. The Vikings were unable to get a touchdown. That just comes to show right there why our team is 7-8 right now. Why our team is 7-8. Mike Zimmer, Clint Kubiak. It is that simple. It is that simple right there. Because the Vikings have a top 5 offense in the NFL. And I've said this time and time again, and I will continue to say it. The Vikings have a top 5 offense in the NFL, and they have the youngest offense in the NFL. We should be competing with this offense that we have, even without Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook's the top 3 running back in the NFL. Vikings don't have Dalvin Cook. Alexander Madison's a solid backup running back. With that being said, the Vikings should be passing 70% of the plays anyways. It doesn't matter who's in the backfield. Throw me in the backfield. Vikings should be throwing over 70% of their plays. And that's why this Minnesota Vikings team continues to be a disappointment, is just simply our coaching staff calling god-awful plays in the fourth quarter. Now, the Vikings did not have a bad second half. I was very happy with how the Vikings entered into the third quarter and into the fourth quarter. Into the fourth quarter, we saw two drives at the end of the game that explained how good our offense can be. If you remember, in the fourth quarter, the Vikings were down 27-13. They needed 2 touchdowns to tie up the game. And the Vikings said, oh, we need a touchdown. Oh, let's try to actually score on this drive. Why not? So they did. Clint Kubiak and Mike Zimmer scripted up a beautiful 75-yard drive where they scored in under 3 minutes, I believe it was, and only 7 plays. 75 yards in 7 plays, ending in a touchdown where Kirk Cousins hit Osborne in the end zone. It is that simple, Vikings team. It is that simple. This is a Rams defense. You went 75 yards in 7 plays because you scripted a drive that revolved around the pass, that made Justin Jefferson the focal point of your team, that made Kirk Cousins have the ball in his hands to be able to make a play. That is the Vikings team we need to see. That's the Vikings team we need to see against the Packers. We need to see against the Bears. And if the Vikings make the playoffs, we need to see in the playoffs as well. That offense right there. And going into 2022, Justin Jefferson is the focal point of your offense, and you pass all the time. That is the Vikings team we need to see. And it just showed in the fourth quarter. Not only that one drive right there. Now, that was a beautifully scripted drive. And I know the Vikings ran a couple screen passes, and they ended up working. I'm not saying don't run screen passes. I'm saying don't run screen passes on 3rd and long. That's all I'm saying. If the Vikings experiment on first down, that's totally fine. I believe they got 4 first downs in that drive that I'm talking about. Just an excellent drive that was scripted by this Vikings offense, and it is simply that easy. It is that easy. Because the Vikings weren't run pass. They weren't run screen pass. I mean, this is not rocket science, Clint Kubiak. This is not rocket science, Mike Zimmer. This is obvious. This is so clear for this Vikings team. And that drive has to fix this Vikings team. Now, obviously, you can't fix this Vikings season because the season is down the drain right now. I mean, best case scenario, we go in on the road in the playoffs. That doesn't sound like a best case scenario to me right there. But after that, the Vikings also had another drive where it ended in a field goal. Vikings could have went the whole yardage of the field and able to score a touchdown. However, they wanted to settle for a field goal right there because they were expecting to get maybe an onside kick. That's totally fine. But this Vikings team, fourth quarter, showed what we're capable of. Why can't we show that in the first quarter? Why can't we do what we did in the fourth quarter all game long? I'll give you a reason why. Mike Zimmer, Clint Kubiak, our entire coaching staff. Our special teams had a bad day. Who expected that to happen? Now, Greg Joseph did make 4 for 4 field goals. Longest was 44 yards only, though. But he made 4 for 4 field goals. Perfectly fine. However, our special teams allowed an easy punt return touchdown to the opposing offense, and also just were unable to really make any plays on the kick return or punt return run game. But in the first half, that was just ridiculous from this Vikings offense. They punted 4 times in the first half. 4 times. That's ridiculous. I cannot believe how bad this Vikings offense was in the first half. And they were booed. As a matter of fact, the Vikings fans this season have booed their team more than I've seen any other season in the NFL. Or for this Vikings team. And I've watched the Vikings for a long time now. I have not seen booed this many times. And honestly, rightfully so. Because we have to boo this Mike Zimmer and this team for how bad they've been performing and how we set our expectations too high. I'll admit, I set my expectations too high. I forgot Mike Zimmer was our head coach going into the season. I forgot how bad our coaching staff was. But still, you look at our roster, we should be competing. And that's the most frustrating part about this Vikings team, is the fact that we should be competing. Now, you notice I didn't put any of the blame on Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins did throw an interception in this game. It was not his fault. It was caused by KJ Osborne. It went through the hands of KJ Osborne and into the hands of the defender. He threw his first interception in the red zone this season so far, and it was not his fault at all. He threw for over 300 yards as well in this game, and he threw a passing touchdown. So we're not really going to credit Kirk Cousins here for playing well or losing us this game, as Kirk Cousins is making $35 million and he shouldn't be credited at all for this Vikings team. However, that touchdown drive with the Vikings in the fourth quarter just showed what we're capable of, and that's what we need to bring every game. Also, I love that the Vikings did target Justin Jefferson 12 times. I say at least 10 targets to Justin Jefferson every game, at the bare minimum 10 targets. He had 12 targets for 8 receptions and 116 yards. That's another 100-plus yard game for Justin Jefferson, who's on track to break Randy Moss's Minnesota Vikings single season record. Alexander Madison, though, solid day. Solid day. I mean, he had 3.2 yards per carry, which is terrible. We don't want to see a running back have only 3.2 yards per carry, but we have to remember this is the Rams defense, and we shouldn't be giving him 13 carries. He only had 13 carries in this game. That's perfectly fine. Again, 3.2 yards per carry, not the best. However, he was using the pass game as well, where he had 9 yards per reception, and it was mostly on screenplays. So Alexander Madison had a solid day considering it is the Rams. Now looking at the Vikings player of the game, undoubtedly easy player of the game right here picked, because he was one of the only players that had a great day. That was Anthony Barr, who had 7 total tackles, 2 interceptions, and 2 pass deflections. Also, I have to mention, thank you, Dalvin Tomlinson, again, because Dalvin Tomlinson, I wish that was another stat that said defensive lineman helped get an interception or something like that. That'd be another nice stat for Dalvin Tomlinson because he did actually help Anthony Barr get that easy interception. And then next week, the Minnesota Vikings will travel to Green Bay to take on the arch rival Green Bay Packers, who right now are on top and already clinched the division, and they're on top of the NFC. This is a must-needed win for the Vikings. If the Vikings want to make the playoffs, they have to win this game. And even if the Vikings don't make the playoffs, I just want to win this game. That's all I want. If the Vikings win out and so do the Eagles, I don't care. Just us beating the Packers, if we stop them from getting a first-round bye, that would be huge because I cannot stand the Packers and I hate them and I want them to lose. So it's more about the Packers losing than it is Vikings winning right now. So if the Vikings win this game, it would be huge for us and and also bad for the Packers. So that would also be huge for us. Vikings, this game will be on Sunday Night Football. You know how we all look on Sunday Night Football, or primetime in general does not look great. However, hopefully we can play better than we did last time against the Dallas Cowboys. Sunday Night Football, 7:20 Central Time on NBC. Vikings lose 30-23 at home, and we'll preview this upcoming matchup against the Green Bay Packers this Thursday on Morning Kickoff. I hope you all do tune into that.